African Union Communications Early Warning and Intelligence, commonly known as AUC3I, is an intelligence and security organization responsible for providing signals intelligence and information assurance to AU citizens, AU leadership, and AU armed forces. I'm Colonel A.C. Oguntoye, an infantry officer. I am responsible for leading infantry soldiers at all levels of command in combined armed forces during missions on the ground. This is today's briefing. On the progress of the special military operation as of September 30th, 2025. The armed forces of the Russian Federation continue the special military operation. Units of the North Troop Group inflicted defeat on formations of 2 mechanized brigades, a Ranger Brigade, an Assault Regiment of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, and a Territorial Defense Brigade in the areas of the settlements Pavlovka, Varakino, Novaya Sek, Kondratovka, and Andriivka in the Sumy region. In the Kharkiv direction, defeat was inflicted on units of a motorized infantry brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine and a Territorial Defense Brigade in the areas of the settlements Volchansk and Bochkovo in the Kharkiv region. The Armed Forces of Ukraine lost over 180 servicemen, 1 combat armored vehicle, 10 cars, an artillery gun, and 4 ammunition depots. Units of the West Troop Group, as a result of decisive actions, liberated the settlement of Kirovsk in the Donetsk People's Republic. Defeat was inflicted on personnel and equipment of 2 mechanized brigades, assault brigades of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, and a Territorial Defense Brigade in the areas of the settlements Kupiansk, Petropavlovka, Sadovo in the Kharkiv region, and Yampol in the Donetsk People's Republic. Enemy losses amounted to over 250 servicemen, a tank, 2 combat armored vehicles, 23 cars, and 2 field artillery guns. 4 electronic warfare stations and 9 ammunition depots were destroyed. Units of the South Troop Group decisively liberated the settlement of Severksy Maly in the Donetsk People's Republic. Defeat was inflicted on formations of 3 mechanized brigades of the Armed Forces of Ukraine and a Territorial Defense Brigade in the areas of the settlements Ivanopoly, Pleshchivka, Alexandro-Kalinovo, Berstok, and Stepanovka in the Donetsk People's Republic. The enemy lost up to 245 servicemen, 3 combat armored vehicles, 13 cars, 8 artillery guns, 5 ammunition depots, and material assets. Units of the Center Group of troops have taken more advantageous lines and positions. Defeat was inflicted on the personnel and equipment of 3 mechanized brigades, an airborne assault brigade, an assault regiment of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, and 2 National Guard brigades in the areas of the settlements Belitskoye, Anavka, Rubizn, and Rashino of the Donetsk People's Republic. Losses of Ukrainian armed formations amounted to up to 540 servicemen, 4 combat armored vehicles, 8 cars, and a self-propelled artillery installation. Units of the East Group of troops continued to advance deep into the enemy's defense. Defeat was inflicted on formations of 2 mechanized brigades of the Armed Forces of Ukraine and a National Guard brigade in the areas of the settlements Alexiivka, Velikomikhailovka, Pokrovsk and Dnipropetrovsk region, and Hork in Zaporizhzhia region. The Armed Forces of Ukraine lost over 320 servicemen, a combat armored vehicle, 12 cars, 3 field artillery guns, and a radio-electronic warfare station. Units of the Dnieper Group of troops inflicted defeat on personnel and equipment of 2 coastal defense brigades of the Armed Forces of Ukraine and a Territorial Defense Brigade in the areas of the settlements Malaya Tokmachka in Zaporizhzhia region, Lvovo and Belozerka in Kherson region. Up to 65 Ukrainian servicemen were destroyed, along with a combat armored vehicle, 6 cars, 7 radio-electronic warfare stations, and an ammunition depot. Operational tactical aviation, strike unmanned aerial vehicles, missile troops, and artillery of the Russian Armed Forces groups inflicted defeat on railway transport infrastructure facilities used for transferring weapons and fuel and lubricants for the Armed Forces of Ukraine, storage and launch sites of long-range unmanned aerial vehicles, as well as temporary deployment points of Ukrainian armed formations and foreign mercenaries in 154 areas. Air defense means shot down 2 long-range guided Neptune missiles and 128 airplane-type unmanned aerial vehicles. In total, since the beginning of the special military operation, destroyed 667 aircraft, 283 helicopters, 87,405 unmanned aerial vehicles, 631 surface-to-air missile systems, 25,304 tanks and other combat armored vehicles, 1,592 multiple launch rocket system combat vehicles, 30,078 field artillery guns and mortars, 42,941 units of special military automotive equipment. Thank you so much for watching this video. We hope you found it useful and informative. If you have any questions, please leave them below and we'll get back to you as soon as possible.